Recently announced at IGN's Summer of Gaming 2023 Xbox Showcase, Star Wars Outlaws is coming sometime in 2024. It touts itself as the first ever Star Wars-based open world game. But is it though? Haven't we had open worlds in games before? Do we have to play as a girl? All right. Yes. So yes, recently announced a new Star Wars game. Go figure, right? We're getting a lot of them lately. Aren't we?
Yeah.
Like, there's
a lot.
I mean, I don't know if anybody's known this, and this isn't something that I'm breaking NDAs for or anything like that. But Respawn is making a another Star Wars game besides the Jedi series, and besides the third one that's currently being done. They're making a FPS version. Oh, we lost Vincent. There we go. Okay, now we got him back. They're making an FPS, a Star Wars FPS, which is going to be pretty cool. I really hope that. I mean, I'm dying for a little bit of like, maybe it's a successor to Battlefront 2, and maybe it's.
Please.
Yes.
Please.
Please. Please. All right. Maybe, but yes, Respawn is working on that, and so that this one actually comes to us from Ubisoft, or Ubisoft, as some folks say, and we saw the trailers for that video game, and it is touted as an open world game, and a lot of people were just, one of the controversies, guys, is that a lot of people thought, wait a minute. We already have open world Star Wars games. What is this? What do you mean it's the first ever? And so I'll explain a little bit about that, since I am kind of like the video game guru here. And so I'll explain a little bit about that. And the other part of it is that the main character is a girl. So, oh my, right? And so I'll talk a little bit about that, because I think it's so much less about her being the lead and more about the mechanics of the game, right? So I'll talk a little bit about that. I think that's where the controversy really lies. So first and foremost, for the last better part of like 20 years, probably more, we have had MMOs, which are your massive, since 1997, which is the first one was Ultima Online. We have had MMOs. MMOs stand for Massive Multiplayer Online. That's a genre of game. And what that is basically you kind of have some of the files installed in your computer, but the majority of the world and the majority of everything that is involved in that game sits on cloud servers. And everybody connects into it, and you have character creation, and you can create your characters based on what is being presented. You could, like for example, World of Warcraft is a very famous MMO. So you can create your characters. You can be a Horde, or you can be Alliance, and you can be male, and you can be female, and you can be all of those things. And you load in, and you can connect and play with other people, right? And group up and party and raid and all that good stuff. That's your traditional MMO. And back in the day, MMOs, I mean, I'll tell you, World of Warcraft costs about $29 million to make. Yes, I know. And a lot of people think that's a lot. It's not, because what it costs today to make an MMO is, to make a really, let me preface by saying, to make a really good MMO would be roughly around 400 to 500 million. Okay?
Intimidating.
Wow. Okay.
Yes.
And World of Warcraft is probably quadrupled, if not octupled, their profits on that game.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so in an MMO, right, you have the ability to have character creation, like I said, and all that good stuff. But that $400, $500 million price tag is just undoable. And so the industry back in 2017, we had the Game Developers Conference, GDC, and, they sent out surveys, and they said, if we were to create a middle ground between an MMO, and here's the next one I'm going to explain, which is an RPG. An RPG is a role-playing game. It's single player. It usually has a quest that you follow, a main storyline quest that you follow, and you eventually get to an end, and then you uninstall the game and you don't play it, and you sit around and wait for the sequels, right? so Jedi Survivor is very much an RPG. Okay. And so, the industry kind of came back together and they were like, well, how do we do this? How do we create something that's in the middle? Because we obviously can't go around spending $400-500 million for to build what people are asking of us, and they keep asking of us. And they want to come up with some sort of middle ground. So the middle ground of that actually became what is now known as open world game. That's a genre. It's not just a feature in a video game. So like, for example, Jedi Survivor or World of Warcraft, you open up the map and you can go anywhere you want, travel anywhere you want, et cetera, et cetera. That's an open world feature in a game, right? But this is different in the sense that we've actually created a brand new genre where there isn't a linear quest. So it's very much similar to how an MMO works, where there isn't just a beginning, a middle, and an end, right? But it's also locally installed, which
so basically a Bethesda game.
Yes, very much so. And I like the idea of that, but it is kind of a new genre for us in the industry. And I think what has happened is a lot of folks have been confused by the name. And we there was a survey in 2017 at the GDC that came to all the industry professionals and said, hey, this kind of middle ground game, what would you call it? Because that's how we come up with everything nowadays, is by vote. And so I said there was one of the options was open-ended game, which I thought was a better description, and I voted for. One of the options was open world game, so I knew that one won. I'm like, I knew that one, and so, there was all these other options in there. I think one is like non-linear game, all this other thing, and we voted on, all the industry professionals that were there voted on, and that's kind of how that came about. And so I think there's just been a lot of confusion between an open world feature in a game, which an RPG can have, an MMO can have. I mean, any game can have that, right? And the name of this new genre, if you will. But the reason for it is because people have been kind of clamoring for an MMO. I mean, I'm one of those, and my little gaming community of like over 5,000 people, TLP, is one of those. We have been sitting around waiting for a good MMO to come out that we can all converge together and play together and raid and PvP and do all those good things in. And it's not happening. It's been tried. I mean, Amazon tried with New World and it didn't happen.
What about SWTOR?
Well, SWTOR is very old.
Right.
It's been around for a long time. Right now, unfortunately, BioWare sold it.
Oh, what?
Mm-hmm. They did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When?
Yeah. BioWare sold it, I want to say within the last 30 days. I can't remember exactly when.
It's fairly recent, like really recent.
Yeah. They sold it over to Broadsword. And Broadsword is where, hold on. Exactly. Not many people know about it but Broadsword has been around for a very long time. It used to be called Origin Systems Incorporated, OSI. And OSI was owned by Richard Garriott. And Richard Garriott was the main developer, the conceptualist, if you will, of the MMO genre. He invented, created, deployed, managed, did everything for Ultima Online. And so Ultima Online still is a thing today. It still has 500,000 subscribers, believe it or not. It's still a very, very popular game. So when they kind of said, okay, well, it's still, Origin Systems was sold to EA. Okay. So Broadsword is owned by EA. Okay. And they put basically Ultima Online on maintenance mode. And so they did the same with another game called Dark Age of Camelot. And that game was wildly popular. I mean, we played that game for 5 years. We had a huge guild in it. We, commanded the entire server we were on, which was Lancelot. We were the underdogs. It was so much fun. We played it for 5 years. And then when that MMO actually went into like service maintenance mode, right? Because it got old, yet it still was profitable because there's still so many subscriptions to it. It was offshot over into Broadsword. So, the joke is that Broadsword is where MMOs go to die. But the truth of it is, Broadsword is where MMOs get a dedicated team to keep it in maintenance mode and keep it profitable. So they'll do new content, they'll do all that kind of stuff. So all the team from BioWare that was on SWTOR was moved over into Broadsword.
Did they take RuneScape by chance?
No, they don't. I think they're specifically focused on the MMO genre, right? Like massive players. So I know RuneScape has a little bit of that. I've never played RuneScape myself.
Oh man, that was my game back in the day. I love RuneScape.
No. So and just to answer my husband in the chat. Hi Jake. My husband. No, Shroud of the Avatar is actually Richard Garriott still owns that, and he wanted nothing to do with EA, so no, he did not has nothing to do with Broadsword at all. I'm actually really good friends with Richard Garriott. So yes. Okay, so June 7th. So like officially switched on June 7th. Thank you, Kings.
Wow.
So it's been moved over into Broadsword. But Broadsword is a great studio. I know Masana very well. She's the head of that studio. I know her very well. She's very passionate and she's very dedicated about bringing that content to the players that actually enjoy those older games. I wish EverQuest had gone to Broadsword, because I think that would have been great. Keeping that game alive kind of thing. But what do you guys think about, in general, Star Wars? I know some of you may have never heard of this before, and some of you have, but what do you think about what's going on in the community around that game? What are your thoughts about that? Anyone? Jump in.
I mean, look, I guess I'll go. Get me out of the way. I talk too much anyway.
I was expecting Ross to go first.
Yeah, I was waiting for him.
What are you trying to say? What are you trying to say?
Take the lead, my emperor.
Exactly.
I don't know. So, it's funny when I think about open world games, I always think about, Bethesda's the first one that comes to mind. So the great thing about open world games is that you get to, it's like a pick your own destiny. You can explore it however you want to. And the coolest thing about it for me has always been you're always able to create a character that you feel represents you, or something so fanatically wild that it just makes the game fun for you. I think about Oblivion and Skyrim are like two of my absolute favorites, any of the Elder Scrolls stuff. But that ability to kind of put yourself into the world is what I enjoy so much. And I feel like it kind of detracts from that, not being able to be whoever you want to be in the open world, because you very much make that open world your own, as opposed to playing through the perspective of somebody else. Yeah. So I just thought it was kind of a weird choice. I mean, I get it. Everything has to be female in Star Wars now. So like, I understand the direction that they're going in. But for me personally, I would have much rather had an awesome in-depth character customization. And then the ability to do whatever you want, almost like Star Wars Galaxies, where you could have been a Jedi or a bounty hunter, and if you want to be a Jedi, it's going to take you 5 years to get there, and if you die, it's all over.
Well, I mean, basically, you just described SWTOR, so I mean, that's really how that game is, right? And I think you're right. I think the expectation from people was, if this is truly like an open world game, I would like to be able to create my own character in it.
I guess it feels more
go ahead,
play. No, because then it just feels more like role play than it is. Like the open world is more like a feature rather than a highlight. It's supposed to complement the whole experience and the immersion, but it just becomes kind of like, hey, this is the story, but by the by, enjoy the world,
right?
Kind of thing.
Yeah. I
thought
agree with you.
Yeah. I was just expecting it to go in a different direction originally when I heard the news about it.
Yeah. What did you expect it would be when you first heard it, Josephine?
Well, because the thing about Star Wars, especially if they're jumping into the whole open world aspect, is so that we could experience more of the diversities of the world. Like if we wanted to go to, learn about Chewbacca's family and all that culture, we get to venture into that. I understand that obviously there would be like a world story because every open world needs some kind of like situation going on, and that's fine. But I kind of agree with Ross. Was like, if I want to jump into the dark side or have that experience of, you know what, I want my character to have some massive trauma and be really gripped with this conflict of inner fight and everything, then I would be able to actually, twist that, kind of like if you were to play Sims and you just want to put your Sims in a pool without a way out.
Yep.
Kind of thing.
Yep.
Yeah, I want
You're
to
a
do
terrible person.
I do that.
Of my character,
I do that. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. And I think one of the things, and I did talk to Sharon about this a little bit, on Monday, was that basically the Jedi series, right? So Jedi Fallen Order was launched in 2019. And Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor both have open world features within their games, right? Not a problem. And I think that, was there really that kind of backlash or that kind of necessity to play your own character with Jedi Fallen Order? Did you have that experience, any of you? Like, were you like, when Jedi Fallen Order first came out in 2019, did you go, well, this is lame, I can't create my own character?
No, because I feel like it was like a ride on rails game. You know what I mean? That is very much a narrative driven as opposed to an open world. Like you said, it's a feature, but that was a ride on rails experience. It was a story being told from somebody's perspective. That's what I wanted them to shift away from when it came to an open world game.
Yeah.
I'll shut up now.
Yeah.
No. Keep going. What do you think, Sharon?
No,
go ahead,
I
Chris.
mean,
no, it's okay,
Chris.
Sharon.
Okay, I'll cite you over it, darn it. When you go in a game, you kind of know that it's going to be, okay, I'm playing this character. If I go in and I'm playing a Tomb Raider game, it's Lara Croft. If I'm going in and I'm playing Jedi Survivor, I'm Cal Kestis. So to me, it's like, big deal.
Yeah. I honestly didn't understand that backlash, to be honest, because I guess I'm looking at this game as more of an RPG than an MMO. And I think for Ross and for Josephine, they're looking at more like similar to an MMO than an RPG, right?
I mean, it is nice to be able to create your own character with their own backstory, but you got to go with what the game developers have decided is their vehicle.
I think
you enjoy what you have.
Yeah.
The more accurate way is like, I feel like I'm playing. Have you guys played Hogwarts Legacy?
Yeah.
No,
it
but
feels like that. It feels like that, just with the whole multiplayer aspect of it, where you have some sense of your own character, but everything else is driven for your character. You have little choices along the way, but everything else is pretty much streamlined in terms of the story, as opposed to, I guess, because I love MMOs and I've always played those kinds of like Final Fantasy and like Skyrim and stuff like that. So my concept of an MMO or even an open world is very Black Desert Online, where you can decide your occupation, you can play with the market, and you can have different angles as to how you want to go about playing the game.
Yeah.
Now it just feels like there's a whole lot of, it just feels like Zelda.
I was just thinking that in my brain.
Yeah.
I'm like, that was my first open world game, was Ocarina of Time.
Yes, for sure.
It's not necessarily a bad thing. I was just, from what they were announcing about the game early on, it just felt like that's what they were giving us. And then turns out it's like, oh, okay. All right. Like that. That's just my only impression.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm still going to play it.
For sure.
Dude, I'm gonna play the heck out of that game, right? Especially because I'm a huge fan of what George was looking to do essentially at the beginning with a game that he was working on developing called 1313. And so it was all about the underground. It was all about the gangs and the
We got a trailer.
I know.
I feel Star Wars games have been criminally mishandled, and like I blame EA for a lot of that. But do you remember like the golden age of like Lucas? Oh my god, dude, LucasArts was it formed my childhood.
Yes, the X-wing, the TIE fighter, like
oh,
those games were so great. I mean, I had a little bit to do with Squadrons and in some instances, but I really wish that Squadrons would have been more like that.
I honestly feel that in terms of the games, Star Wars franchise has honestly been kind of left behind. They really didn't do as much as they could have with that massive amount of lore.
So, what happened with Eclipse? Because I remember seeing trailers for that and then just nothing.
Yeah, so Eclipse is still in development. It has some budget issues.
They sold it off, didn't they?
No.
What's the name of the Canadian studio picked it up?
No.
Quantic?
That was the KOTOR remake. The KOTOR remake was with Aspire in Canada, Montreal.
I thought they did the same thing with Eclipse. Was that they basically made that reel for somebody else who had more money to buy it?
No. Quantic Dream still owns Eclipse, and they're still working on Eclipse. Quantic Dreams is out of France, so they're more, they're French studios, so it's kind of easy to confuse that one and Aspire because Aspire's in Montreal. But
they have a Canadian studio, don't they? Quantic?
No, I don't think so. No.
Yeah, the guy who ran the Canadian studio, that was like the whole thing. A bunch of people were mad about the game because was that the KOTOR remake?
That was KOTOR remake.
Okay, all right. I'm totally mixing up my stories.
And so the KOTOR remake did get sold off to another studio.
Gotcha.
So Aspire doesn't have it anymore. But that one was a mess. Like they spent so much money trying to, I mean, you really are taking a very old game and trying to port it into a system, and you want it to play on PC too. I mean, I think that's a little ambitious, if I'm honest, because we've had so many different wild experiences with the different configurations for PC gaming for so long. Like we can't possibly. And then you launch a game, and if it doesn't work on PC, people are crying about it like crazy with reason. They paid money, they want to be able to play the game with reason, but it's just impossible. Like there's so many different configurations for PCs that it's just crazy. It's impossible to test for everything. It's impossible to do all of that stuff, and it's like what are we going to do with that? So yeah.
And how many versions of Windows are there, and how many different video drivers are in the machines, and
yes.
how far back do you want to make it compatible?
Yeah. And so guys, if you have any comments around the video games that are coming out for Star Wars, do leave us a comment below. I'll try to get back to them and answer you. I mean, I'm in video game development, so I can have some more insight as much as I can.